Hey everybody, welcome back to Better Workdays. I am your host, Andy Morrison from Real Custom Training, and this is the show where you get free, fast, and actionable advice on how to use leadership skills to create better workdays. Now, those better workdays could be for you as an individual. Sure, nothing wrong with that. But let me tell you this, when you create better workdays for yourself, inevitably, there's a ripple effect, and it's going to have a good impact on the people around you, especially if you're a supervisor, a manager, or a leader of any sort in the workplace. You've got a ton of influence on other people. So when you're creating better workdays for yourself, you're creating better workdays for other people too. And that idea, that idea of that ripple effect, the fact that what you do in your organization, even when it seems like maybe it's very singular and it only involves you, it almost always is going to have an effect on other people in the organization. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. Today, I'm going to show you a model that I truly believe everyone in your organization should know about. And I don't say that lightly, okay? I actually put a lot of thought into whether I should say everyone should know about this, because I don't appreciate when influencers, instructors, facilitators, self-professed, the guru types in leadership development, I don't like when they use hyperbole. I don't like when they use hyperbole either. I don't like when they say, everyone on the planet should know this, or every boss everywhere. Because oftentimes when I listen to what they have to say, I think, well, that's valuable, certainly. But there are lots of examples of employees that wouldn't apply to, or lots of examples of bosses that maybe shouldn't use that tactic. But in today's day and age, there's no room for that type of nuance. It's got to be all or nothing. Always do this, never do that. I don't like that kind of stuff. But in this case, I genuinely mean it. I think every organization would benefit if everybody in their organization had some understanding of the fundamental levels of leadership in an organization. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I have a very simple model for you. This is going to be helpful. One, as always, if you just don't know this, it's going to be helpful to you. Now, the assumption sometimes is that when you become a manager or a leader in the workplace, that you know these kinds of things. And this is what I have found in my work through Real Custom Training and in my own education. I was a professional for a long time before I learned really about this breakdown of the levels of leadership in an organization and what the different responsibilities are. And it was eye-opening. And now when I bring it to workshops and I put it in front of groups, it is one of those things, and I love it. It's a source of joy and pride when you can see, not literally, of course, more hyperbole this time for me, but when you can see the light bulbs going off over people's heads and they go, oh, because so oftentimes the stuff that we share with professionals through Real Custom Training and our learning programs, I always say this, it's the kind of stuff that we all know, but we didn't know that we knew it yet. You kind of know it, but you haven't articulated it. No one's put it into model form for you and said, hey, here's a model that explains this phenomenon, this thing that you have experienced yourself in the workplace, but maybe never put into words. Here's a model that sums it up for you. And what's great about those models is once you understand it, you can start using it to your advantage. And that's what I want you and everyone in your organization to be able to do with the model that I'm going to show you in this episode. It's going to help you understand the basic fundamental levels of leadership in an organization and how you can leverage that understanding to help create better work days for yourself and for everybody in your organization. And that model that I'm going to show you is this hot model right here. The Leadership Matters at Every Level model. Actually, that's not a good name for the model. It's great. It looks good on there. I think this graphic's going to kill on LinkedIn. But the name of the model is just, we'll call it the Levels of Leadership model. Now, I always forget. We are on YouTube. I don't forget that. What I sometimes forget is that not everyone who listens to Better Workdays also watches it on YouTube. Some of you, maybe you're at the gym, you've got the earbuds in, you're just listening to us. Maybe you're out for a hike, maybe you're doing the dishes. So for those of you who are listening and not watching on YouTube, allow me, please, to paint a picture for you. What I have put up on the screen here is the Levels of Leadership model. It is a triangle, a pyramid, if you will. And this pyramid has been divided into 3 parts. So you have a bottom level of the pyramid, a middle level, and a top level. The bottom level of the leadership model is labeled task leadership. That's the first level of leadership in any organization. The middle level is called the functional leadership level. And the top level of leadership is the strategic leadership level. And what I want to do first is help break down for you the different responsibilities and duties of the folks who occupy the leadership roles within each of those levels because they're distinct. First and foremost, task leadership level. This is what you would call the frontline leaders. These are your frontline supervisors, your shift leads, your team leads. These are the folks that at Real Custom Training we work with primarily. A lot of the training I do is with frontline supervisors, many of whom are new to being supervisors, but not always the case. I work with a lot of folks too that have been supervisors for years. And sometimes we have a blend of people frontline and maybe some folks more from the middle management ranks. But right now we're focusing on that frontline leadership, which in this model is referred to as the task leadership level. Now, there's a clue in there, isn't there? That's right. Tasks. That's what they're all about. The tasks, the work. What is the organization on this planet to do? What good do you make? What product do you make? What service do you provide, right? Why does your organization exist? The answer to that why and how that why happens, that's what's happening at the task leadership level. So for this episode, I'm going to use a fictional company to help walk us through this. So we are going to use the fictional company of Widgets R Us. And do you know what they make at Widgets R Us? Now, hold on. Please, if you're not seated, I need you to sit. If you're listening while driving, I need you to pull over and be safe because I'm about to blow your mind. At Widgets R Us, they make widgets. And what are widgets? I don't know. I just know when I worked at a Voc Tech school, I learned there that anytime you're talking about manufacturing and you need to just refer to a general doodad or hoodookie that's getting made, is hoodookie the... I digress. I'll have to come circle back to... No, not hoodookie, doohickey. Yeah, doohickey. Doodads and doohickeys. Widgets are just a placeholder when you need to refer to something getting made. So a lot of the times in education, it's they're making widgets. So we're talking about Widgets R Us, where they make widgets. Now, at Widgets R Us, where they make widgets, at the task leadership level, of course, that's where the widgets are getting made. It's where the manufacturing is occurring. If you're in a service industry, at the task leadership level, let's say classic McDonald's, okay? The task leadership, the folks that are in those leadership roles and the individual contributors doing the work, they are in charge of making the food, serving it to the customer. Okay? So it's where the work gets done. I won't say the most important work, but it's the work most closely and directly related to the delivery of the organization's mission. So at Widgets R Us, task leaders, supervisors, frontline supervisors, they are responsible for ensuring that there is operational effectiveness within the plant. Okay, things are getting made and made effectively. Things are getting made and made consistently so that when a customer orders 100 widgets and Widgets R Us says, we can get you those 100 widgets in 2 weeks, your task leaders are the ones making sure you meet that deadline on a consistent basis. They also are concerned with quality because what good is making 100 widgets on time if you made 100 bad widgets and the customer sends them right back and says, we're going to your competitor. We're going to Widget World next time. All right, we're done with Widgets R Us because those widgets, they were on time, but they were garbage widgets. Okay. Effectiveness, consistency, quality. That's what your folks at the task leadership level are in charge. And that's what they are the stewards of. A level up from them, in the middle level of leadership, you have, again, sit down or pull over because I'm going to blow your mind again. At the middle level of management, this is what we call middle management. Okay. They're the ones between the frontline leaders and the top level leaders. Your functional leaders have to ensure that the departments in the organization have the necessary expertise to get the job done, to provide the service or make the thing that the company is here to make or do. And functional leaders also, very importantly, they need to make sure that the voices from the task leadership level are being heard at the next level of leadership. And at the next level of leadership in this model, it's called the strategic leadership level. So most of the time in the real world, when we're talking about the strategic leadership level, we're talking about your CEO, your chief financial officer. Okay, the big dogs, the big bosses in the organization, the powers that be, if you will. These are the folks that are at the top, the C-suite, the executives. Strategic leaders are in charge of ensuring that the organization has coherent aims. What are the goals? What's the mission? Why are we here? They're also the folks thinking about the values of the organization and how those values manifest themselves in the way that work gets done in the organization. They are the big decision makers, the big decision makers. The decisions that have the most impact over the most people in the organization are going to be made at the strategic level. And they are also in charge of resource allocation. One resource that's a great example to use is money. Okay. What departments get how much money in their budget each year? That's being decided by the big bosses up top at the strategic leadership level. Now, maybe you knew all this, or maybe you're feeling like I said, a lot of people feel when I present this in a workshop where they say, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I knew, of course, we all kind of know, yeah, there's supervisors, there's managers, directors, and then there's vice presidents and presidents. And say, okay, I get it. I've never seen it laid out like this. If that's the case, congratulations. You just gained some very valuable leadership knowledge in 11 minutes and 30 seconds. So good for you. A nice reminder, if you spend a half hour a week on your leadership development knowledge and skills, you are a great boss. And I'm not being facetious. Just give it a half hour a week to learn about stuff like this. Let it get into your head. Let it affect your thinking and decision making. That's boy, I wish every boss on the planet would do at least that. 30 minutes of learning about this stuff. Now, why is it important to know about this? Well, it's important that everybody understands where they fit in this model, because sometimes you might be at the task leadership level. You might be a frontline supervisor. And what can happen is things like this. Let me get my pen out. I'm going to do a little, I said before I'd paint you a picture. Now I'm actually going to start drawing, but let's go back to Widgets R Us. And I'll give you a story. What do they call it in journalism when they want to create a character? I think they call it a composite. Maybe they interviewed 20 people and then they create one person to tell a story about who kind of encompasses a lot of qualities of those other people, so that you're not telling exactly their story, but you're getting the spirit of it across. That's what I'm going to do right now with Widgets R Us. This story is not verbatim anything I've heard from clients. It's kind of a mashup of a lot of different similar tales I've heard from the frontline leaders that I work with. And the story goes like this. At Widgets R Us, you've got the CEO, Mr. Widget. And the CEO of Widgets R Us, obviously, he's up here. He's at the strategic level of leadership. Now, he read a book that said, every CEO, you should walk the manufacturing floor. Get down there, see how the widgets are getting made. Talk to the people. Make sure the values that you guys cooked up at that retreat you went to, make sure you're seeing them in action throughout the organization. So, Mr. Widget or Mrs. Widget, that's a lesson in implicit bias. And hand up. That was my implicit bias. CEO, I went male instead of female. Sometimes that's a good way to catch yourself with implicit bias. A quick aside. I previously lived next to a state trooper, and before they moved in, the person selling the house said, "Hey, Andy, you better start behaving yourself. You got a state trooper moving in next door." And I said, "Oh, what's his name?" And they said, "Oh, she's a woman. So it's a female who's the state trooper." And I said, "Geez, of course, like stupid caveman, Andy. I assumed it was a man." Just an example of implicit bias. We'll do another episode on implicit bias. But Mr. or Mrs. CEO, okay, they go from their level, they go down to the front line, and they do the walk, and they take a look around Widgets R Us. And what do they see? They see 3 employees on the front line with no safety glasses on. Big no-no. One of the core values at Widgets R Us is safety, as it should be and I know it is at so many manufacturers. Do not take for granted, folks. Okay. I can appreciate, I didn't know anything about manufacturing until about 9 or 10 years ago. And then I got to learn a lot about it. And one thing I learned is it's dangerous. Even if the product being made doesn't seem dangerous, I can guarantee you the process behind it had plenty of danger. When you get into industrial manufacturing places, it's big equipment that people can get hurt using. And safety is paramount in manufacturing. And that's the way it is at Widgets R Us. So they see these 3 employees with no safety glasses on. And they say, I got to talk to the frontline supervisor here. So they go to the frontline supervisor, and the CEO says, I see 3 people with no safety glasses on. Don't you value their safety? We're supposed to value safety here at Widgets R Us. Yet when I come down here, I see 3 of your people with no safety glasses on. Next time I come down here, everybody better have safety glasses on because we value safety at Widgets R Us. And the frontline supervisor opens their mouth to say, and the CEO says, I don't want to hear it. No ifs, ands, or buts. We're not messing around with safety. Get safety glasses on those faces now. And the CEO leaves, goes back up, goes to their office feeling like, wow, I really got down there and saw what's going on and made sure our values are being lived. Okay. Here's what that frontline supervisor was going to say. They were going to say, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, the reason my employees don't have safety glasses on is not because I have been lax in enforcing that rule. It's because there was an accident midway through the year that wiped out our remaining safety glass surplus. You know, all the safety glasses we had to go to when people need new safety glasses. There was an accident and they're wiped out. They're not available. We don't have any more safety glasses to go around. So when safety glasses break, employees literally don't have them to put on. And maybe what ends up happening is that frontline supervisor could have told the CEO, I put a purchase rec in for more safety glasses. However, spending that money is not my responsibility. I don't have the authority as a supervisor to spend the money to get all the safety glasses we need. Who has that authority? Okay, you're starting to see where we're going here. That authority lies here, a level up from the task leader. It lies in the functional leadership level. The middle manager there perhaps is the one who has to approve that purchase rec. And for any number of reasons, let's just say that manager is not approving that purchase rec. So your frontline supervisor is left looking up saying, guys, what's going on here? And maybe they finally do go talk to their manager and say, what's going on with that purchase rec? The CEO just took my head off. We got to get the safety glasses. Okay, now a similar tale is to be told at the functional leadership level. That middle manager might say, I got your purchase rec. I want to approve it, but here's the problem. And guess where the problem lies? That's right. We're moving up a level. We're at the strategic leadership level. Because a couple years ago, Mr. or Mrs. CEO put a policy in place. Okay, remember, I'm going to circle it here. Policies are the purview of the strategic leadership level. And let's say they put a policy together. They realized one day, you know what? If we buy our safety glasses in bulk and we do it on July 1st of every year, and if we combine it with the bulk purchase of all the Scotch tape that we need here at Widgets R Us, we could save a boatload on both of those items. So let's put a policy in place. We want to make sure no managers waste money on safety glasses or Scotch tape. We're going to put a policy in place. You can only purchase those items together in bulk on July 1st so that we can get the savings we need, because we are in charge of policy and resource allocation like money. And if we see an opportunity to save money, that means we've got more money to dole out to the organization. So we're going to put that policy in place to make sure we save money on those items. Now, that policy might as well come in the form of some sparkly handcuffs for the functional leader, because now let's just say that they're blocked. They can't get that purchase done. And I know I'm being a little facetious with the examples, but I'm sure you, like the participants in my workshops, have plenty of less facetious, less silly examples from the real world where this happens. A policy at the strategic level keeps people at the functional level and from the task leadership level, keeps them from solving the problem that manifests at their level. And that's the big takeaway I hope you will get from this episode, is that headaches and problems and issues that occur at the task leadership level that might lead a CEO or anyone else to think that the supervisor at that level is not doing their job. Oftentimes, the root cause of those problems started at the functional or strategic leadership level. Sometimes the root cause may be at the task leadership level, but the authority to address that root cause and actually implement a solution doesn't lie with the task leadership level. So sometimes in an organization, many times, in fact, you can be stuck if there's not cohesion and understanding and communication from level to level to level, from the bottom to the middle to the top, from the top to the middle to the bottom. Everybody needs to be talking in the organization to understand these things. And so oftentimes when people are banging their head against the wall and it feels like there's a log jam, it feels like there's a problem that should have a quick and simple solution, yet for some reason we cannot get it solved. In those instances, I bet you will find it's an example of a problem at one level, the root cause of which is at another level, or the authority to solve the problem is at another level. No comfort to the folks who are stuck with the headaches that the problem causes. All right, I could show this model to that supervisor who is on the CEO's watch list and say, hey, here's the model that could help explain why you're not getting those safety glasses. Fat lot of good it's going to do him. He's going to say, great, now I better understand why I have this headache, but I still have a headache. It's kind of like the headache's down here at the task leadership level, but the folks who can give them Tylenol are here at the functional leadership level. But guess what? We're out of Tylenol, and the money to buy more Tylenol is tied up here at the strategic leadership level. Okay. In a nutshell, that's kind of what it comes down to. So this model is so important because what ends up happening is that communication that I advocated for. It's not always there. Now, this is an issue that Real Custom Training helps companies address. And the way we do it is this, or one of the ways we do it. And I've got some future plans on big ways we can help with this. But right now, the relatively small way we help is this. When I work with companies and do private group training, in the first session, I tell the participants, and I tell the leadership team who engages me, who brings me in to do the training, I tell them this from the onset. And then as soon as I'm with their employees in the workshop, I explain this to them. As we go through the training program, I tell the participants to give me their flagpole items. And what do I mean by flagpole items? Well, if there was a flagpole, that's my attempt at drawing a flag there. For those of you listening who aren't watching, let me tell you, I just drew a beautiful flag. It's unbelievable how good I am at drawing flags. But if you've got that flag, and if in the workshop, where we talk a lot in our workshops are interactive. People are talking about the real world challenges they're facing. And my job is to help them develop skills that they can use to address those problems. But flagpole items are the problems they're running into where no skill of theirs can be used to solve the problem, again, because the root cause isn't at their level, or the authority to address the problem and solve the problem is not at their level. We call them flagpole items because they let me document it in my report to the organization. So I run it up the flagpole for them. I say, hey, I've got the ear of some of your leadership team. Maybe it's the functional leadership level. Sometimes it's the strategic leadership level. And I say, look, if we're identifying these issues in your organization that you as frontline leaders can't fix yourselves, the organization needs to know about them. The good organizations want to hear about that. And I'm fortunate. I've only worked so far with good organizations who value this and say, yes, please bring that to us. Bring it to us. We need to know about these things. If they need safety glasses down there and we're not aware that our infrastructure, our systems that are in place, our policies, whatever it is, if we're not aware that our level is holding up progress and success at another level, we need to know about it. Real Custom Training can help companies learn about that through our private group training and through the reporting that we can do to your company as we learn from your employees about some of the internal challenges that it's very difficult for functional and strategic leadership level folks to know about. And why is that? Because they're busy. This is another valuable part of this model. It is so easy, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, okay, because I've done this. I continue to do this. I'm sure you do too. Everybody does it. We take for granted that we know what other people's jobs entail. We take it for granted. For example, I've had folks, frontline supervisors or employees at the task leadership level, and I've had sometimes I hear sentiment like, hey, I read our company made this much profit last year. It's a big, big number. Why can't we all get a raise? Why can't we? And in asking that, they're kind of criticizing their upper level leadership of, well, why can't we get a raise? Now, I chalk that up to sometimes it can be a lack of understanding. They're saying, why can't we get a raise? They're kind of asking it rhetorically. They're kind of saying, why can't we, to imply we really should and we could. I would encourage them, and I do when they bring it up. I say, well, you're asking why. You literally do need to go find out why. You need to approach this with curiosity, because I guarantee you, the folks at the strategic leadership level, if that profit is not being used to raise salaries, I guarantee you they've got their reasons and they could explain it. But how often does a frontline supervisor get to go talk to those folks and find out those reasons? It depends on the organization. It depends on how much internal communication there is from strategic leadership to functional to task. And it depends on whether the folks at each level understand the reality of life at the other levels. You want your task leaders to understand exactly what the responsibilities are of your functional leaders so that they can extend them grace. They can extend them grace so that they know, hey, maybe it's not the middle manager isn't approving that purchase rec because they just are a jerk or they don't care about our safety. No. Now that I understand this model and I understand the different levels of leadership in my organization, I can extend some grace and say, hey, there's probably more to this than I can see from my perspective. And maybe that middle manager that I'm getting mad at, and I see them as being kind of derelict in their duties, maybe they're just hitting the same type of roadblock I am. You need that understanding. So this model, again, I don't say it lightly. I think everyone should know about this model. Does this apply to every organization? No, especially in the modern age where I studied this stuff in grad school. Sometimes it can make my head spin. All the different ways and structures for organizations. There's matrix organizations. This structure represents more of the traditional hierarchical power structure and organizational structure. And nowadays there's a lot of talk about flattening this type of hierarchy. Regardless, though, of the exact structure, all of these decisions, all of these responsibilities will lie with somebody in your organization. There will be a need to ensure effectiveness, consistency, and quality. There will be a need to ensure specialized expertise is allocated appropriately. And there will be a need to have coherent aims and policies and resource allocation. Those needs will never go away. It doesn't matter what shape your organization takes. Those needs are going to be there. This model, though, for the most part, it's a great jumping off point to understand the basic levels of leadership, where you fit into it, how what you're doing at your level affects the folks at the other level, and vice versa. Everyone needs to know how you are impacting each other in the organization, because you know what? Your organization is not 3 levels. Theoretically, it's broken up into that, but it is one organism. And I'm circling this triangle, folks, to help represent. It is one organism. Your organization is one thing. It's one organism. There is no 3 tiers. It's all one and the same. You may think you're only living in one, but no, that's the only part of it you can see. But you are very much part of the whole thing. And it's important that everybody take that perspective and understand the impact that each level is having on the other one. I think there would be more understanding in organizations. And again, the ability to extend more grace when things are frustrating. It would just maybe help explain why. And once you understand why, you are in a much better position to go about coming up with a solution. All right, that's the leadership at all levels model. Thank you for listening this week on Better Workdays. I hope you like this model. It's one of my favorites. The next few episodes are going to be about my favorite models. We're not talking Heidi Klum and Cindy Crawford and Fabio. No, we're talking about leadership models. These are the ones, they're all like this, relatively simple, right? This isn't that tough. My 5-year-old could draw this triangle. My 8-year-old could write these words out for her. They could probably wrap their heads around this. And that's the beauty. That is the best kind of stuff to learn in leadership. Relatively simple, but profound in its impact. Profound when you wrap your head around it. And now, imagine if you're the task leader who really has a good appreciation for the headaches at the C-suite. We take that stuff for granted. Your C-suite executives, they're going to love you. if you've taken the time to try to understand what life is like for them. And you know what? They damn well better be doing the same for you. Everybody, especially leaders, because what's leadership, everybody? It's intentional influence. And you need to understand your influence on others and their influence on you if you're going to be the most effective leader you can be. And I would hope in your organization, every leader you have is striving to be the best leader they can be. If they're not, I've got a solution for you, but I'm going to save it for a future episode. But we are working on a big solution for that. I want to talk about it right now because I love thinking out loud, but the basic gist of it is this. Real Custom Training's going to be able in a year or two, we're going to be rolling this out soon, but we're going to be able to work with organizations so that they can honestly, and I mean honestly, I'm not talking about spinning it or anything. They're going to be able to honestly advertise that there are no bad bosses in their organization. I hope you can see how excited I am saying it out loud. We are going to help. We've already done it with one company, and we're trying to scale it. We have a program so that companies, I mean, if you're in recruiting right now, can you imagine if your company could honestly put it out there in your marketing materials as you're trying to recruit and convince people to come work for you? Can you imagine if you could honestly say there are no bad bosses here, that we simply don't allow bad bosses to exist in our organization? It's possible. It's possible. In fact, you know what? I've hyped it up so much. Next episode of Better Workdays, everybody, I'm going to tell you what you need to do in order to advertise in your recruitment materials that your organization has no bad bosses in it. Come work for us. We've got nothing but good bosses. That doesn't mean every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows, but it means you are always going to have a supportive leader who's got your back. I'm going to tell you next episode how you can make that happen in your organization. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Very important model. And also, let me just say this too. This is my own graphic design. I'm quite proud of it. Look how colorful it is. I love it so much. I love this model. I get jazzed up about this stuff. But we're 31 minutes in, and part of our promise to you, what was it? You remember from the beginning? Free, fast, actionable. It has been free. Fast is relative. That's a rather subjective term. 31 minutes to me is fast because, folks, I love this stuff. I could talk about it for another 6 hours. Actionable, that's up to you. What are you going to do with the information I just gave you to improve your organization, to create better work days? I'm not going to tell you. I gave you the information. I know you can think about ways that this applies to your organization. And once you start thinking of it like that, you're going to start coming up with different ways of doing things, and you're going to put this into action. You are going to make it actionable. You're going to make sure I'm not a liar. You're going to put this into action for me. All right. I will see you on the next Better Work Days, at which time I will tell you what you need to do in order to honestly be able to say there are no bad bosses in your organization. I'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.